Hi everyone. We're going to be talking about the gradebook this week. This is our Wings and Wisdom session for the week. We're making a simple scaled down video to cover the content of it. So heads up, give you advance notice if you already used the gradebook or already convinced about using gradebook. I'm going to get up on my soapbox for a second, so feel free to fast forward or do the thing where you have the video play at twice the speed and I sound like a chipmunk on helium. However you decide to do that. But we're going to talk about the gradebook for just a couple minutes real quick and then get into it. But wanted to give you a heads up on that. So what I want to do is, for those of you maybe who are new, for those of you who haven't used the gradebook that much, or even for those of you who maybe have used the gradebook but only put a few grades in there and you're still, using a spreadsheet or, piece of paper or something like that to calculate grades, we want to talk about why you should use the gradebook and use it fairly extensively. All right. So the first thing is coming from a student perspective. Students are now coming from the pandemic, especially those coming from high school, coming in debates. They have an expectation. They've had 24/7 access to their grades for the last 2 years, and they're expecting it now. So hopefully you are doing the same thing. You're putting all your grades in Canvas because that's the expectation of the student. Okay. Now that's a negative way to phrase it. Let's find a much more positive way to talk about that. We like you to put the grades in the gradebook, and you should as well, because it gives your students agency. All right. It gives them the power to kind of determine how they're doing in the class and navigate your course. Okay, so if your gradebook's up to date, there's all sorts of information that your student can get from it. What's obvious is, what's my grade? Okay, what am I doing good in? What am I doing poorly in? The big one, obviously, what assignments am I missing that I still need to turn in? And if your gradebook is up to date, students can even go in and ask questions like, what grade do I need to get on my final to pass? Or what happens if I get a 70? Or perhaps most importantly, for a student who might be struggling, hey, I've got 3 missing assignments. If I buckle down and get those assignments turned in, what's that going to do to my grade? So they can actually go in and enter that in the gradebook and see the effect on their grade. So you're giving students the ability to kind of navigate your class and choose how they go through things. All right. This might seem a little weird, but I would encourage you to treat your gradebook like your syllabus. Okay, and what I mean by that is, I've talked with tons of you, and you guys take your syllabus very seriously, as you should. The language you guys use is, it's an agreement. Some of you even call it a contract, but you guys work really hard to make sure that that syllabus is an accurate representation of what the class is going to be like. Here's when we meet, here's how I'm going to grade, here's what you can expect as you go through my course. So congratulations for doing that. That's great. Your gradebook should serve the same function. At any point in time within reason, your gradebook should accurately reflect how the student is doing in the class. So they should be able to look at it and again answer, how am I doing? What's my grade? What am I missing? So treat your gradebook every bit as seriously as you treat your syllabus. That's the same thing. It's an agreement with your students. Okay, now that's a student's perspective, and you guys are awesome. I know you care deeply about that, but let's talk about it from your perspective. All right, we want you to use the gradebook because it's going to save you time and effort. Okay, you're not going to have to calculate grades by hands. You're not having to go flipping through a bunch of papers that are sitting on your desk at the end of the quarter, or a student standing in front of you wanting to know what their grade is. Okay, so it's going to save you headaches, time, effort. The gradebook is going to keep all your grades in one spot. It's going to calculate it as the students go along, makes your life much easier. And most of you are aware of that, okay? Another benefit to you is it means less hassle, okay? Less questions from your students asking what their grade is, less arguments from students wanting to know why they're getting a grade, and we hope it doesn't come to this, but even less appeals, less time spent in that nasty meeting with a parent, with a dean, with the vice president, where the student believes that they should have gotten an A or a B in the class, they ended up getting a D or an F or something like that. They're going to have that information as they go through the class. Nothing's going to come as a surprise to them if they're just looking in the gradebook. Okay, so the encouragement is invest some time now, reap the rewards later. If you're saying, Tim, you're crazy, I'm super busy, I don't have time, I understand. Maybe just do one course this quarter and build it. But if you invest an hour now, both in this class and then as you repeat that class again and again and again, and that gradebook is complete, you're going to save hours, 5, 10, 20 hours down the road, you're going to save that time. So we want to encourage you to do that. All right. We also want to encourage you to put everything, or as close as you can to everything in the gradebook. Yes, Canvas assignments are going to be in there, essays, quizzes, discussions, all of that sort of stuff. But realize, when I show you in a second, you can also have paper assignments. So if, for example, students work in a workbook and hand that in, you can make a column in Canvas for those assignments, and then when the time comes, you just enter it in Canvas and it's right there and it's calculated. Canvas can even do non-submissions, so maybe something like a clinical or a lab, or even just you walking around and inspecting workbenches, things like that. You can do the same thing. We can put a column in there, and when the time comes, you walk around and inspect workbenches, you can put in everyone's score for the week right there. And again, the ultimate goal, everything's in there, right? And that brings us to really the point of this. We want the students to have an accurate, timely snapshot of their status 24/7. That's the ultimate goal here, okay? So let's start talking about the gradebook, okay? And before we look at the gradebook itself, let's answer the question of how does stuff get into the gradebook? So most of the stuff is done automatically, okay? If you create an assignment and say it is worth 10 points, it shows up in the gradebook, anything with points attached. Discussion board postings, if you give them 5 points, that's going to show up in the gradebook. Quizzes will show up in the gradebook. So everything shows up that you create in Canvas. But we did just say you can put things that aren't in Canvas in there. So let's show you how to do that. I'm going to click on this Add Assignment button, and it's going to create an assignment. I'm going to skip typing in the title and the description and all that, and just point out a few things. First, notice you can put the points in directly. So, again, if we're talking about that workbench inspection weekly, it's worth 10 points. I can just go in and put in it's worth 10 points, assuming I can type. There we go. Okay, you can automatically assign it to an assignment group. This kind of matches your syllabus. Is this a lab? Is this a discussion? Is this an assignment? Is it a quiz? So you can automatically add it to the assignment group in Canvas. You can also say how you want to display grades. The reason I point this out is a lot of you like using credit, no credit, or complete, incomplete. The workbench is a great example. You walk by, you don't want to argue whether it's a 9 or an 8. If it's clean and all the tools are in the right place, they get a 10. If it's not, they get a 0. Great. Set it for complete, incomplete. They get 10 or they get 0. Okay. And then one more button to point out to you. You can actually say, don't count this towards the final grade. So let's say, for example, it's a practice quiz you want them to take or something like that. It'll go in the gradebook. The students will see their grade, but it will not count towards the final grade. So you can check that. Okay. And then the big box that we talked about is right here under submission type. Most of you do online. Understand? That's the most common thing. So and most of you will either check text entry or file upload. So people are either typing something in as an answer, or they're uploading, their spreadsheet, their Word document, whatever that is. So that's the most common, but we did say that you could do it. So I want to point it out to you. If people are submitting something on paper, like an essay, a workbook, math problems, anything like that, you can say it's a paper assignment. It's going to create that column for you to enter grades when you're done, or you can even select no submission. And that just means the students aren't submitting anything, but you are in fact assigning them a grade. And then once we're done, we're just going to click on save, and that's going to create the assignment, and it's going to put it in the gradebook for our students. All right. A couple more things to show you on this assignment page that are really going to impact how your gradebook looks and how it works and the data that it gives your students. For a lot of you, your assignments looks like this. It's just some stuff that's kind of thrown on the page. It's not organized at all. And in a lot of cases, that might be fine. But do realize you can organize this, especially if your students are seeing it, so it makes more sense. So I'm going to rename this. Instead of calling this assignments, I'm going to pretend that all of these are labs. So I type that. By the way, I do have the ability to, for example, go in and ignore low scores for a student. And I'm going to call this one, if that one was labs, let's call this one essays. And again, I save it. By the way, I can add more groups. I can click on add group right here. Whoops, add group. And let's make this clinicals. And you see it down here. And then once you've created all of your groups, you can then move the assignments up and down. Again, it's going to make much more sense to the students. That's the first thing. Oops. Let's drag it all the way down. So I can move these up, down, into new categories. So first off, that's much easier for students to figure out what assignments go where. But the real power of this is now I've got the ability to do weighted assignments. What that means is very simply, a lot of you have this in your syllabus. In this case, 20% of your grade is labs, 30% is essays, and 50% is clinicals. You can go into Canvas, you click on this More button right here, click on Assignment Groups Weight, and then select, yes, I want to actually weight these groups. So I forget what I just said, but pretend I can remember. So 20% is labs, I think, 30% was essay, and 50% was clinical. I don't mean to insult your intelligence, but please, 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 please make sure that adds up to 100%. Okay, if it adds up to 90 or 110, that means your grades are going to be inaccurate. And yes, I'm saying that because I have seen that in gradebooks before. So once we've done this, once you've double checked that it adds to 100%, you've double checked that this matches your syllabus, the same calculations, we can click on Save. And again, this is easier for your students. They now can see these are all my lab assignments, and here's what the percent is. This is also going to add it to our gradebook. So over on the far right side, it's going to say, here's your lab grade, and it's going to tell them that's 20% of the grade. Here's your essays grade, that's 30% of the grade. Here's your clinicals, that's 50% of the grade. So again, back to that thing of the students can see their grade, see how they calculated it, figure out exactly why they're getting that 82.5% in the class. All right, so that's the assignments page. Again, as you can see, this can really impact the way that the gradebook is constructed, the information that the students have. So now if I go to my gradebook, here's our gradebook, and the big problem that we have, or that a lot of people run into, is very simply, it gets messy, and it gets messy really quickly. All right, so mine isn't that bad. I've got about 20 students or so. I've got about 15 to 20 assignments. It's pretty easy to get through. I've seen some of your guys' classes, you've got daily and weekly assignments. You might have 50, 75, 100 assignments in here, and you're scrolling left and right furiously to try and find the grade for, week 3 lab or something like that. Or you're scrolling up and down to find that one specific student, and then you're doing the thing where you try and figure out their score, and you've got 2 fingers you're trying to touch, and yeah, it's a mess. So here's a much easier way to go about this. So there's a few things we can do. The first thing is, if you just don't like where something is, you can move it. So I'm going to click right here, move it over there, move this over. That works great if I've got 2 or 3 or maybe 5 assignments, or just want to move a few things. That's obviously not going to work if I've got 50 assignments, but that is one way that you can move things. Another way to do it is if I click on View, I can go to Arrange By, and I can arrange these any way that I want. Most people don't want it alphabetically. That's not how they arrange it, but you can do that. What most of you are going to want our due date. And again, most people will select oldest to newest. That means it just goes through in chronological order. The first things in the assignment are first in the gradebook. The last things in the class are last. Some of you might also want it grouped by module. So all of your Module 1 assignments go at the beginning, Module 2 after that, Module 3, and so on. I'm going to arrange mine by due date, oldest. Okay, that's a very common way to do it. A few other things on View. You have filters. So you can choose 2 ways to kind of pull up assignments quickly. You can do it by assignments groups. That's the one that we just talked about. Labs, clinicals, discussion groups, essays, however you have your course arranged, or by modules. And that's, again, probably the most common thing because that's the way your classes are grouped. So you click on it to turn it off or on. And then over here on the right side, you have this drop down. So I go to all modules, and I can choose which module I want to look at. I'm going to choose Module 1, Introduction. And as you notice, all the other assignments went away. I'm just looking at those 3 assignments from Module 1. It makes it really easy to look at it, to score it, to see how the students did on a specific module. I've got all my information right there. And then all I have to do is remember when I'm done, to go back to all modules, to turn off the filter. Okay, so that's the View commands. 2 down at the bottom, You have notes and unpublished assignments. Notes is actually pretty handy. If you click on that, it just adds a little note column there. So you can type notes to yourself. Maybe you want, Johnny likes being called Joey. You can type that in, okay? You can type in phonetic pronunciation of students. You can put in gender preferences, anything you want in there. It's a note to yourself. You can put in things like if someone is excused because they gave you a doctor's note, you can write a note to yourself so you don't dock them for an assignment late. You can put whatever you want there. Students will not see it. It's just for you, so you don't need to worry that students are going to see any of those notes. You can type that in there. So you can turn that on. The other thing is you can decide whether or not you want to view unpublished assignments. In this case, they're going to be hidden. If I click on the check mark, you'll see if I have unpublished assignments, they've been added to the class. All right. One other quick thing real quick. If you are saying, hey, what the heck are those colors? If you click on statuses, it will actually show you. So it explains your color coding. The two big ones obviously are blue is late and red is missing. By the way, if you're super bored, you can go in and change those colors. All right. So that's the view. That makes it a lot easier to get through the class. You can organize your gradebook the way you want, and you can also filter it so that you can see only what you want to see. Another way to filter it is you can just type in a name or an assignment. So I'm going to type in a student's name. I select them, and then only that student is there. So I'm only seeing them. I'm not trying to, again, scroll up and down through students to try and figure out what a student did. I can then turn off the filter. I can also sort by assignments. So I can go in, start typing it. I can do more than one, by the way, if I want. So if I have two assignments I want to look at, I can see those two assignments right here. And again, that's the only thing that's showing on the screen. It makes it a lot easier, especially, again, if you've got dozens of assignments, you can pull up the one assignment you're looking for. All right, so that's some ways to filter it. The other thing is each column has some commands. So if I put my mouse here on student name and I click on it, honestly, there's not that much here that's exciting. The next one has a lot more power, but I can sort it, I can sort almost all of you're going to want by name, but I could sort by ID. I could do A to Z or Z to A. I can choose first name, last name, first name. Again, pretty basic. Most of you are just going to stick with the default and not mess with that, okay? Really, the real power is when you get into the individual assignments and you click on, again, those three dots, the More menu, you've got some tools in here. So, for example, by Sort By, I can real quickly sort by grade low to high or high to low so that I can see how students did. Everybody who did poorly is going to be down at the bottom. I can look at them very easily. I can also filter or show just ones that are missing or ones that were turned in late. I can go down to Speed Grader, and it's going to pull up the Speed Grader in a new window just for this assignment. So we've got that. A nice handy thing is Message Students Who. So if I click on that, it pulls up basically kind of an email thing here for composing message, but it's going to filter. For example, this is going to send it to everybody who hasn't submitted this assignment yet. Okay. I can also do, for example, anything that's marked incomplete. I can do that. So I have these ability to send messages directly to students from the gradebook. I don't have to open up an email. I don't have to make a list on paper and then copy them over. It'll just send it automatically. In this case, for everybody, I'm going to type it who hasn't submitted it. I'm going to say, hey, these were due yesterday. Please get in touch with me and let me know when you're going to be turning this in. All right. So that's compose message or message students who. I'm going to skip default grade because we're going to talk about that next week. And we do have this here, which is really handy. It's hide and post grades. And the purpose of this is a lot of times when you're grading, you don't want students to see their grades right away. Maybe because it's going to be a hassle because you're only going to grade a few of them and you don't want half the class to have grades and half the class to figure out why they didn't get a grade. Another common thing, we've all done this where we start grading papers or start grading assignments and we grade the first 5, and then as we start going farther and farther along, we realize those first grades probably need to be adjusted up or down now that we've started reading it. So obviously that could be a nightmare if you change a student's grade and they see it. Very simple solution. I'm going to click on Hide Grades and tell it to go ahead. And now Notice that little I with the slash through it. That means that this is hidden from students. So no student's going to see it. I can go in, I can grade it, I can do it over several days if I want, I can adjust them later. No student will see their grade until I go in and manually click on Post Grades. And now it's posted. Okay, so that's just about it. The only other thing to show you real quick is over here on the right side, we've got settings. Okay, so you do have some things that you can do. For example, you can automatically do late grades. I could go in, say I'm going to automatically apply it. I want 10% per day, but I don't want them docked any lower than a 70%. You can go in and enter that. We're going to talk about this top one next week. That's how to go ahead and automatically grade assignments. And we talked about grade posting earlier. You can actually set it for the entire class, so you don't have to go in and do it manually, automatically post grades or manually post grades. Okay, so those are just a few quick settings you can do. But other than that, hopefully we gave you some good tools. We explained how stuff gets into the gradebook, and some different ways to get stuff into the gradebook, and more importantly, made it more easy for you to navigate and get in and get that key information that you need. As always, if you've got any questions at all, let us know. Shoot us an email, give us a call. We'll be happy to walk through any of this for you or answer your specific questions. More importantly, hopefully this answers your questions, and next week we're going to do intermediate and advanced functions, talk about some key things that you can do in your gradebook, and we'll see you on Wednesday.